Okay, it's on YouTube Live.
Cool. Oh, actually, I see. Okay. Meeting of the Leeward Planning Commission went off of order. It's 9:34 a.m. Thursday, August 8th. Live streamed on YouTube. Sorry. Is it working? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, meeting will now come to order. It's Thursday, August 18th. Time is 9:35 a.m. This meeting is being streamed live on YouTube. First, we'll start with introductions. We have Commissioner Mahina Paishan Ward.
Aloha.
Commissioner Zaheva Knowles. Commissioner Mike Delacruz.
Good morning.
Vice Chair Barbara DeFranco.
Aloha.
And I'm Mike Matusik, Chair. Continuing introductions of staff, we have Kira Wong, Deputy Corporation Counsel, Jeff Darrow, Deputy Planning Director, Maya Jackson, Planning Program Manager, Alex Roy, Planner, Alex in the back, Clinton Mercado, Planner, Noriko Sauer, Commission Secretary, and Janice Hata in Hilo is the Zoom host. Please make sure that your cell phones are turned off or on silent. All of us who are attending here in person, please remember to pick up your microphone when you're speaking. Please speak directly into the microphone so that your statements can be recorded and transcribed. Our first order is to approve the minutes. What meeting the July 21 Leeward Planning Commission meeting? We have a motion by
Second.
Vice Chair DeFranco, second by Commissioner Delacruz. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Cool. Statements from the public on agenda items. Is there any public, member of the public registered to testify today?
No.
Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion to close public testimony?
I make a motion to close public testimony. Second.
Motion by Vice Chair DeFranco, second by Commissioner Paishan Ward. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Continuing on to business, item 1 has been withdrawn for further review by Planning Department. Item 2 and 3, we'll take those two together. Applicant is Artie McCullough. Item 2 is Application for a state land use boundary amendment from agriculture to rural for 5.848 acres of land. The subject property is part of a 2-unit condominium property regime. Is located in 62-2225 and 62-2239 Lee Street at the southwest corner of the intersection with Kauai Road and Kona Subdivision, Lee, South Kohala, Hawaii TMK 36-2-009, parcel 15. And application for change of zone from agricultural 5 acres at 5A to residential and agricultural 2-acre RA-2A zoning for 5.848 acres of land in the same spot. Staff presentation.
Hello and good morning, everyone. I'm Clinton. I'll be doing the Artie McCullough presentation. All right, so the first slide is our location map.
Hold on a second, sorry. We gotta shoot, we gotta.
No problem, thank you. Okay, so our first slide is the location map. The subject 5.848 acre property is located at the corner of the Kauai Road and Oili Street in the Kona Subdivision, which is located in the South Kohala district of Hawaii Island. The subject property is outlined in blue. And a small overview on the next one. The applicant is requesting a state land use boundary amendment from agricultural to rural, and a change of zone from agricultural 5 acres, 8-5A to residential and agricultural 2 acres, which is for the 5.848 acres of land. The reason for the request, according to the applicant, the primary purpose for the request is to address estate planning, as the subject property currently consists of 2 condominium property regimes, CPR, so known as, consisting of approximately 2.9 acres each. Each CPR unit accommodating one of the 2 existing single-family dwellings. If the request land use entitlement changes are approved, the applicant proposes to subdivide the 5.848 acre property into 2 approximately 2.9 acre lots, each of which will accommodate one of 2 existing single-family dwellings. Further, no additional improvements are currently proposed by the applicant, and the subject property is fully built out with existing dwellings and accessory structures. The county zoning map here is a closer view of the subject property outlined in blue. The subject parcel is currently zoned agricultural -5A acres, which is shown in the light green color on the slide. Nearby parcels are zoned Ag 5A and residential and agricultural acres, which is shown in yellow on the slide. And finally, the parcel across Kauai Road is a zone agricultural 40 acres, which is shown. Next is the general plan. The general plan use pattern allocation guide map is classified the subject property and the surrounding properties in the Kona Subdivision as rural, shown in the mustard. The parcel across Kauai Road is classified as extensive agriculture, shown in the white. Next, we have the state land use map. The state land use designation for the subject parcel is agricultural, shown in the green, the light green. The surrounding parcels consist of both agricultural in light green and rural tan. I'd like to add to a lot of these, many of the surrounding properties in the subdivision have been reclassified, their properties to rural and rezoned residential agricultural. Here's an aerial shot. The aerial photo is a subject property outlined in yellow and its surrounding area. Kauai High Road is located north and Oili Street is east of the property. North is towards the top of the arrow. The surrounding area consists of residential and agricultural activities. The existing driveways to the properties are off of Oili Street as indicated. Towards the bottom of the subject property is dwelling number 1, which was constructed in 1990. And towards the top of the image is dwelling number 2, which was constructed in 1998. Here's the proposed subdivision plan. The site plan shows us the subdivided lot line in the middle and all its existing structures. There's a site photo from Oili Street. Looking on the street, the left is existing driveway to unit 1 of the subject property. The second image is the existing driveway to unit 2 of the subject property. Here is also standing on Kauai High Road, looking south onto Oili Street from Kauai High Road, with the subject property on the right, and a flip image standing at that intersection, looking north from Oili Street across Kauai High Road, which is on vacant property. And last is the planning director's recommendation. The planning director recommends the planning commission forward a favorable recommendation to the county council for the state land use boundary amendment and the change of zone requests. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. I'll invite the applicant to come forward. Yes, of course, absolutely. Okay, I'll swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth of the matter before the planning commission? Thank you. Please state your name and the area that you live in.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Darren Arai. I'm a planning consultant residing in Hilo. I'm here representing the applicant, Marty McCullough, who sits to my left, and he resides on the property situated in South Kohala.
And have you received the background and recommendation reports from the planning department?
Yes, we have.
And do you agree with the recommendations included in the proposed conditions?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Please proceed with anything to add.
Thank you. Again, good morning. Thank you for having us here today and for considering the request by the applicant, Artie McCullough. We appreciate the very thorough presentation by the department staff as always. So a little bit of my thunder, but that's quite all right. As far as we do agree with the recommendation, and we're very appreciative of that favorable recommendation as well as the proposed conditions of approval. But just a little bit of background, if you don't mind. The project site is located in Kona Subdivision. That subdivision was approved in 1985 and consists of 35 acre-sized lots. Of those lots, approximately 7 have undergone a transition, a similar transition as being requested by the applicant today. And that has occurred over the course of 37 years since the subdivision was created. Adjacent to the west, or Makai of Kona Subdivision, is Kona Subdivision. And as you saw from the presentation this morning, that subdivision was approved in 1990 and consists of 36 5-acre size lots. And over the course of 32 years since the approval of that subdivision, approximately 25 of those lots within that subdivision has transitioned to the rural district and are a 2-acre zoning. So the applicant is basically requesting the same consideration for a rural designation and a RA 2-acre zoning, which is consistent with the general plan, which designates the area for rural as shown during the presentation. As mentioned during the presentation, this is solely for estate planning purposes. Mr. McCullough has resided on this property for 22 years since 2000, and the Morans, who live in CPR Unit 1, has lived on the property shortly after 2005. So with that, we look forward to your favorable recommendation as well. And if you do have any questions of us, we're here to answer them as best as we can. As I mentioned, we do have the owner of CPR Unit 2, the applicant Ari McCullough, and the owner of CPR Unit 1, Kelly Moran, and his wife Sharon. Mr. Moran is in the audience as well. So with that, we stand ready to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Has there been any other public testimony? Or anyone, member of public join at this time for this agenda item? Okay. We'll ask the commissioners to make a motion to close public testimony for this agenda item.
Make a motion to close public testimony.
Second.
Okay, motion by Vice Chair DeFranco, second by Commissioner Dela Cruz. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Are there any questions by the commissioners or either the applicant or staff? Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Rai and Mr. McCullough. I had a question. It came to my attention recently that you also sought input from the South Kohala Transit Safety Committee, or at least brought this matter before them for consideration during the summer. I just wanted to confirm that that was the case.
I'm not aware. We personally did not make a presentation.
Okay. Well, I was on a meeting where Mr. Hustis just brought it to the committee's attention just for awareness. And so I wanted to say thank you for doing that, giving the citizens of the community an opportunity to take a look and weigh in advance of this. So that was my question.
Are there any other questions?
Sure, I have a question about the money. Just wanted if you could just share some of the agricultural or the permitted use activities that are taking place on your property.
I'm sorry, my hearing needs to turn down.
No
Let me turn up.
Would you like me to restate the question?
Please.
Sure, no problem. I was just wondering, could you share some of the activities that you're conducting on your property, the permitted use activities, such as agricultural type activities or otherwise?
Yes, thank you very much. We have a gardener called my wife. We have multiple vegetables that we grow. We grow mangoes, we grow oranges, we grow olives, we have a plumeria grove. She does all of the work. I take all of the credit. We've had a lack of rain and an abundance of wind this past season, past few weeks. We've lost like 400 mangoes, and we've donated them to people to make pickle mango in church and so forth. But she has a green thumb. And we also have a pet, who's our occupant.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay. Anybody else?
Let's do a follow-up question. You mentioned there's two properties in the same question as my colleague here. Is there any other thing that is also growing on the second property or the second unit? You said the second occupant is here, right?
And if you don't mind, I'll swear you in. You're joining. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth on the matter before the planning commission?
Yes, I do.
Oh, thank you. And would you please state your name and how you live in?
Kelly Moran. I live at 62-2225 Old Willie Street in Cumberland. To answer your question, Commissioner Dela Cruz, I have been growing since 2006. Dwarf Julie mango, Tahitian seedless lime, tangelos, dragon fruit, Samoan coconut, bananas, papayas, various vegetables. I have a degree in tropical crop production from UH and I practice what I've learned on the property. So we have probably, I'm guessing, 200 to 300 trees.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? I have a question, I think probably for staff. Could you explain the water line issue, the water meter issue that was raised in the US?
That one I would like to refer to the applicant. That's okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure if one of the exhibits showed the two individual driveways. The one on the left is Unit 1, which is located on the south side, southern portion of the subject property. Oh, okay. Sure. And maybe the driveway. So the one with the dog on the left that's guarding the property. You may see on the lower left 2 meter boxes. One of those meters serves the adjacent property below it. And if you look on the right side of the driveway where you see what appears to be like address numbers, that's the location of the second meter that serves CPR Unit 2. So both meters are straddle both sides of the existing driveway on Unit 1. And there's there's an easement, utility easement that runs along O'Uli Street. And from that water meter, there's a long water line. Is it above ground or? Well, anyway, there's a long water line that goes to serve the existing house on CPR Unit 2. We understand that the Department of Water Supply wanted the applicant to relocate its meter to the frontage of its property. And unfortunately, I didn't take the measurement, but it's quite a distance away. But the actual water main, from our understanding, is located along the southern boundary of the project site to your left, where Unit 1 house is located. So basically, to relocate the meter, all you're simply doing is extending the water lateral, not the water main, but the water lateral, all the way to Unit 1 frontage. There is no water line along O'Uli Street. Mr. McCullough has been speaking with a water service technician from the Department of Water Supply who works in the area. And from our indications, they felt it was not practical to simply relocate a water meter by simply extending the water lateral, and which has no effect on the water main, which remains on the left side of the picture. So we appreciate the director's condition. The applicant will comply with the requirements of water supply, whatever they may ultimately be, but the condition as written, we appreciate because it gives that deference to the Department of Water Supply and their ultimate determination. And I should note that once the zoning is approved, the applicant will have to go through the formal subdivision process, and both water supply and planning department will chime in once again, and they will ultimately determine what is reasonable or not. Thank you.
I also wanted to ask the planning department about in contemplating, how frequently this seems to be happening, these conversions to smaller lots. What are your considerations regarding increased density in this area and the impact of that going forward if people continue to seek these sorts of redistricting requests?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the general plan updated 2005, the planning department and the planning director looked at areas around the island that were the general plan was identified more as orchards or agriculture in areas that really didn't have significant soil or lands to be able to produce income producing agriculture. And so what they did was identify subdivisions around the island. I'll give you an example: Paradise Park, Orchid Land, Hawaiian Ocean View Estates, Anikona, and Kanihoa. And they changed the general plan from whatever that was, orchards or intensive agriculture back then, to rural, with the understanding that it would allow these, number one, to have the ability to come out of the agricultural district. So there wouldn't be this requirement of having to build a dwelling and produce agriculture, because in this particular situation, as well as the others, the soil type is mainly E, which is lava or very extremely poor soil. But even with that, you can see that people still can grow agriculture. But what it does is it allows them the ability to create higher density. They could actually go to the point of 0.5 acres. So instead of in the agricultural district, the minimum lot size is 1 acre. In the rural district, it's a half acre. But in this particular case, Anikona as well as Kanihoa, there was quite a number of CPRs that were created already. So it's not as if this is creating higher density. It's actually just trying to resolve the ownership issue, the fee simple. So instead of having one property owned by 2 people, it would allow separate ownership. And I'd like to acknowledge Greg Morris here. He was instrumental in doing the majority of the rezonings that we see on the map today. But again, it's not really increasing the density of this particular situation. It's just resolving a long-standing ownership issue.
Just to follow up, I completely agree that this particular case is not adding density or anything, but I think the question was about long-term planning, seeing others coming in, if the infrastructure improvements potentially would be needed long-term for others. So there's a big picture of planning for this type of action in the future.
That's exactly right. Thank you,
Yeah.
Chair.
And again, this, a majority of these lots, when you look at these, I'm just talking about these 2 subdivisions. The only way that they can come in for this rezoning and be approved is if they meet those infrastructure requirements. So if they didn't have water, wouldn't be able to happen. If they couldn't meet the overall traffic requirements, it wouldn't be or they would be required to have to look at certain improvements. This particular area has improved streets. They have water in the area. And again, a majority of them already have 2 dwellings. So they've been, There are other areas that, as I mentioned, had that change to rural. Those would have a much more difficult time coming in because of the issue of density, increasing density. The subdivisions are substandard. They don't have water. The roads are not meeting current standards. So they would have a difficulty moving forward as this application.
And are the accesses to Kauai Road adequate for the private road?
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody have any further questions? If not, hear a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. I move that a favorable recommendation be forwarded to the county council on the application for state land use boundary amendment, docket number SLU 2022-006, based on the planning director's recommendation, which shall be adopted.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. There's a motion by Commissioner Paishon Dwart, second by Commissioner De La Cruz. Is there any discussion? No? Okay, we'll proceed with the roll call vote.
Commissioner Paishon Dwart,
Aye.
Commissioner De La Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner DeFranco,
Aye.
Commissioner, we can always excuse, Commissioner Knowles,
Aye.
and Chair Vitruvic.
Aye. Motion carries. Notified of the decision in writing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Planning Department. Appreciate the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry. We have another.
Excuse me, yeah, we have to
Second
vote on
agenda
the,
item.
yeah.
Can we do a second motion for item 3?
I will forward that a favorable recommendation be forwarded to the county council on the application for a change of zoning docket number REZ 2022-026, based on the planning director's recommendation, shall be adopted.
Wait a second.
Okay, we have motion by Commissioner De La Cruz, second by Commissioner Paishon Dwart. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do roll call vote on that.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner De La Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Paishon Dwart,
Aye.
Commissioner DeFranco,
Aye.
Commissioner Knowles,
Aye.
and Chair Vitruvic.
Aye. Yeah, you will be notified of this one in writing also.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Anyone like a recess, or are we good to keep going? Keep rolling? Oh, right on.
Your wife's green thumb.
Oh,
I can't even keep a cactus alive.
yeah.
Here, I gotta show you a secret. Well, just how to keep the plants alive.
Dirty fingers.
Okay, we'll continue to the next agenda item. Item 4, we have the applicant is John and Shelley Meneghetti. Application for a special management area, SMA use permit to construct a 2-story, 4,798 square foot, 5-bedroom, 4.5 bath, single-family residence and related improvements, which include swimming pool, garage, and lanai. 0.38 acre parcel situated within a special management area. The subject property is located at Lonnie Howe Point Subdivision of Kona Bay Estates, 75-5434 Kona Bay Drive, approximately 0.7 miles from Kona Bay Drive's intersection with Kuakini Highway, portion of Kailua Airport, North Kona District, Hawaii Island, TMK 7-5-005, parcel 095. Okay, Alex will be giving our presentation. Go ahead, Alex.
Good morning, Commissioners, Chair. I'm Alex Roy. I'm the Senior SMA Planner for the county. I bring before you today a Special Management Area Use Permit application, or SMA Major, for a single-family residence. Here's a location map. I put a red star on the site. You can see that it's just Mackay of the Old Kona Airport State Recreation Area, and just north of Kailua Bay in the Kona Bay State Subdivision. The applicant is requesting to construct a single-family residence on that 0.38 acre shoreline parcel. It's a two-story home with about 3,017 square feet of interior space, 5 bedrooms, 4.5 bath, and various other rooms. Additional development includes the attached garage, L&I, a swimming pool, which will be about 56 feet by 8 feet, and of course, residential type landscaping. The total development area for the residence is 4,798 square feet. The home will be connected to the existing utility lines, sewer, water, electric, that are already established within the Kona Bay Estate subdivision. Here's a county zoning map. So you can see the subdivision there, kind of on the bottom of the screen, in the RS, or single family residential, 15,000 square foot zoning designation. Just Malka of that is the limited industrial, which would be the old Kona Airport, and actually limited industrial does include the recreation area. And then you have a mixed industrial commercial zoning that would be across the road for the Malka. The sandy area that you kind of see, Mackay of that, is a remnant of the mapping program. So really not indicative of the site conditions. So the site itself is outlined in red, and as you can see, it's the second to last lot in this. Here's the state land use. Everything is urban. The LUPAG shows this entire area as open. The subdivision is open zoning. You see some urban expansion up in the center of the screen there, and then of course industrial zoning designation. So the entire area of the subject parcel and surrounding is open. So here's an aerial photograph of the site looking looking with Malka. You can see that a majority of the parcels have been developed. The one next door is still open. It's outlined in red. Take note of the wall that bound. You'll see a small green strip kind of at the base of the parcel. The wall, which is a shoreline public access, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, demarcates that green boundary there. Here's another shot looking Mackay towards the ocean to give you some reference on how close it is to the ocean. You can see the lot is completely cleared and has been undergone a history of development, starting with the creation of the subdivision back in 1951. Subsequent development included the establishment of the utilities, the construction of these retaining walls and boundary walls, and then of course some site grading that has gone on in the past. Here's a site plan. I kind of had to turn it a little bit just to show. So I put the west to north arrow to kind of give you some reference, but to your left would be the ocean, and then to your right. The shoreline is certified shoreline. The applicant did get a certified shoreline, and that's in the thick red line. And then you see the public access kind of outlined in the shaded red. And then the 40-foot minimum shoreline setback is demarcated by the blue dashed line. The applicant was able to establish the minimum 40-foot setback in site construction. You have a full set of site plans, of course, presented to you as so here's just a floor plan, first floor. I'm showing the layout of the garage, the great room, the pool, just give you some reference. And then I added the cross section showing you the Malco views and Mackay views. So what you would see from the ocean and then what you would see from the road. Of course, the one on the bottom is from the ocean. I added this slide because I mean, one of the issues in this area is public access. So the thick red line, approximately, as best as I could do it on a format, approximates the location of that access wall. So a citizen or public can walk from one end of that subdivision unimpeded all the way across to the recreation. On top of that, the three other arrows are kind of the Malcolm Mackay access. There are two that run through the subdivision and they have easements and in fact have parking on the Malcolm end of that. At the furthest end near the project site, it's pretty open and I'm going to show you a little picture here. So you can see the project site outlined in red and then the generous public access in this area with plenty of parking. You can see there's only 2 vehicles parked there and numerous trails. And then one could pick up that coastal trail and walk all the way along the boundary. You can also walk, there's plenty of room to walk Mackay of that wall. There's a significant space. So public access along the shoreline and Malcolm to Mackay access through the subdivision are provided and are existing. Here's a view of the project parcel from the access road looking Mackay towards the ocean. You can see it very cleared, open, and the walls that were previously permitted and constructed. This is a view from the public access path looking Malka towards the access road and beyond. So this would be just on that access wall. Here's a shot of looking west roughly across the project parcel, and you can take note of the wall access there, the shoreline access there. And if anybody you're wondering what the flood zone D was, flood zone D is actually levees, and they consider this to be a levee type structure. So that's where the flood zone D, and I threw a few people off. I just kind of wanted to touch on that. It's a very uncommon one. You don't see it very often, but FEMA has decided that this, in their mind, constitutes a levee. And then here's from the public access wall looking east down towards Kona Bay to kind of give you an idea of what the shoreline looks like. No pock up. In this area, there's very little sand. Just a reminder why we're here. Typically, single-family residences are exempt actions in the SMA, but because of the change in law that happened under Act 16 in 2020, those single-family residences that are on a shoreline parcel now are considered development. And this, the evaluation was 1.7 million, which was above the 500,000 threshold. So in that case, it became the SMA major. If it had fallen under 500,000, it would have been SMA minor. So now shoreline parcels are getting a much more thorough review because of the changes to HRS 205A under Act 16. So the director's recommendation for Plan SMA 2022-000017 is approval with the stated recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Applicant, is there applicant? When are you representing?
Yes.
Okay, come on forward. Okay, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth on the matter before the planning commission?
I do.
Okay, please state your name and the town you live in.
My name is Winton Nicholson. I'm from Kailua, Kona, Hawaii.
And would you like to, are you gonna present it all?
That is my friend.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, well, we'll just have you swear in as well. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth on the matter before the planning commission?
I do.
Thank you. And please state your name and town you live in.
My name is Helena Brubaker, and I live in Kailua, Kona, Hawaii.
Okay, thank you. Have you received the background and recommendation reports from the planning department?
Yes, I have.
And do you agree with the recommendations?
Yes.
Okay. Do you agree with the proposed conditions that they put?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Anything further you'd like to add?
We have nothing further to add.
Okay. In that case, is there any public testimony that is signed on at this time?
No, Chair. We
Okay.
haven't received anything. Nope.
Okay, commissioners, should we have a motion to close public testimony for this agenda item?
I move to close public testimony.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Knowles, second by Commissioner Question. Work. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, commissioners, are there any questions for the applicant or for staff?
Sure. I have a question about height. What is the height of the build out of the two-story building? And then also maybe the second question might be for the planning department. I'm wondering what is this property's estimated build up height, and then what is the height in comparison to the nearby properties?
Thank you, Mahina. I cannot read with these glasses, even that number. What is that number? 23 feet, 6 inches. And it's basically the same elevation height as the neighbors. Neighbors are a little bit taller on the north side by the roller skate rink there, as well as the two-story building on the left side, the south side. Did I catch everything?
I think so. Can I ask the planning department to verify that information?
Yeah, and in my review of the majority of the homes in that area, they are two-story. And he's correct that the elevation kind of grades is slightly higher as you move south. So this is in line. In my opinion, actually the one next door will be slightly higher. But yeah, there's nobody that's over 2 stories.
Thank you very much. May I proceed with my next question?
Proceed.
Thank you. I just want, in terms of title, I wanted to, because there is history of many Kuleana landowners. I'm not sure who I should direct my question to, but I'll direct it first to you both. Is the title clear, meaning there are no outstanding claims of Kuleana land?
As far as I know, that is correct.
Can I ask the planning department?
Yeah, I didn't research that personally, so I could check into it, but when we do these applications, there's a clear ownership through real property tax, and that's the check that we do to make sure that the applicant is actually the landowner. So as far as title, like I said, the subdivision was created in 1951. So research further back to that. But I can look into that if that's something you want.
That would be helpful. I mean, as a good faith, it's just a, if that's something that you wanted to do in good faith, that would be wonderful. My third question, ma'am, thank you. Let's see. So in the cultural survey assessment or the cultural assessment, did the estimate include a review of any burials? Or, yeah.
So I have actually Matt, the archaeologist that did the survey for us. Should we bring him up? Because he would be more appropriate for this.
That would be terrific. Please pull up a chair. Actually, the other side's a little. Just kidding. Okay, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth on the matter before the planning commission?
I do.
Okay, thank you. And please state your name and town you live in.
My name is Matthew Clark. I live in Keau, Food District on the island.
Thank you. And just to clarify, you are all here to represent the applicant, which is John and Shelley Meneghetti. Okay. Go ahead.
In terms of, the question was about burials in the area. Yes, I did research as part of this work. There have been a number of inadvertent discoveries in the area. Typically, they are further north at the old Kona Airport beach, where many sets of human remains have come out, and further south towards Wakahoma, where there's another sandy area. I didn't find any records within this subdivision of inadvertent discoveries.
I have some information on that. There has been a few inadvertent discoveries in the vicinity, immediate vicinity of this project. From my time at SHPD, there was right at Keiki Pond, and then immediately north of this project, there's a lot and then open area. There was inadvertent in that area as well. Yes.
May I ask a follow-up
Please,
question?
yep.
So is it part of this process whereby there will be a cultural monitor that will be retained during the build-out process?
So that is a possibility for a recommendation for a condition on something like that if it's necessary.
Yeah, that would be something that the commission would ask as to place as a condition.
And Commissioner Paishandor, do you mind if I ask a couple follow-up questions on archaeology?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. Matt, the site has been disturbed,
Yes.
right? Is it, was it a cut from the original level down to its current level, or was there fill added, or what was the nature of the disturbance?
To me, looking at it, is about 2/3 of it is exposed buoy bedrock on the surface with bulldozer tracks going across. In the Kailua Mackay corner, it's hard to tell. It looks like it was pushed to create the walkway, and they built a berm, like we were saying, a dike, for flood control purposes, I guess. So it looks like, and fill may have been brought in with the sand, and they pushed everything to the front, is what it appears to me. I did try to do trowel probes in the sand there, and it's mixed with topsoil material as well as sand and gravel and concrete. And I could only probe down maybe 2 to 6 inches at the deepest spot.
About how many of those trowel tests did you
I just kind of poked around wherever I could in the sand just to see if there was any chance that there would be buried cultural deposits.
Do you think there's a possibility of having like areas of where there's uneven topography, where like the Ahoy head would dip down low enough where it could contain subsurface material?
I think it's very unlikely. The only spot is again in that Kailua kind of Mackay corner where there are some rocks, but it appears that it was pushed in there to create that walkway next door.
So pushed in, is there was there any testing where you did that can identify like fill on top of native soils or sand or anything like that?
No, we didn't do any formal testing.
Okay. And then if you don't mind, Alex, you think you could pull up page 38 on the PDF on the screen of the background report. Possible to zoom in.
Yeah. Is that the one you want, Chair?
Yes.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, I mean, just in looking at that photo, we're looking at windblown sand deposits.
Can you make it a little bit?
Can you make it a little bit bigger?
Yeah, so we're looking at wind blowing sand deposits in an area that's got a pretty high concentration of burials. And I just want to know if there's any way that we can rule out the possibility that there's anything subsurface on this property.
I don't know that you can 100%
Right.
rule out.
Right.
Looking at it, having looked at other similar properties, I'd say it's very unlikely, but I can't say 100%.
Do you think like doing some formalized testing might give us indication that there is no very, very limited possibility of that? I think we would have be better off in making that decision if we had some. Or would you be confident now with what you know, having been out there, saying that?
I feel confident that it's very unlikely. If you needed more evidence, we could do testing. I do believe it would only go 2 to 6 inches till you hit where you couldn't dig anymore. Looking at the area around, there's a lot of bedrock exposed.
Even in the Mackay corner where there is some fill deposited?
I believe so, but I can't say for sure.
And then, I guess a question for staff is on the SHPD review. Did SHPD take a look at this?
No, we decided kind of under your, when you had advised us in the past to try to take a look. I looked at the site, I went to the site.
Yeah.
And you know, my experience as a geologist, I took a look at the subsurface, but then did a review of all the previous permits. There was an original SMA major for the subdivision. There were minors provided. And the only requirement was one of the miners had asked for an archaeological monitor during development. So that's a possibility. But then subsequent SMAs did not ask for that. And then the house that was built next door did not have any monitoring or requirements.
Are there any more questions, commissioners?
Outside of the realm of the archaeological piece, I know, we've had several conversations in my time, limited time as a commissioner, about emergency evacuation. And this property sits squarely in the tsunami evacuation zone. So I think it's for the planning department, just in terms of considering. I noticed there wasn't much in the background report around this issue, but ingress and egress, and then as we're increasing density on this coastal zone, what does that look like?
I believe that the tsunami evacuation has looked at the subdivision as a whole and assumed at full build-up that evacuation needs for this area. Kona Bay Drive is a private road, so only those that live in this area would be heading out to Kokini Highway and then further Malcolm. But as far as a specific requirement for tsunami evacuation plan, there was none. So that's something that we wanted.
When does the subdivision have one?
I'm actually not sure.
Based on your knowledge?
I'm unaware of that. It's probably with the association documents, their evacuation plan. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I think, quite frankly, I think it would be helpful for us to have a sense that there is some plan in the subdivision.
So when we can only ask questions, right?
Yes.
We can't talk amongst each other.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe as being there, as being residents there or development there, having your home there, you could explain to everybody here that maybe isn't aware of the roadway and the way it connects to the other roadway, so you can explain to everybody here how you would evacuate and how few homes are actually there. I mean, what you would see if there was an evacuation from where you are.
Besides, for vehicle access and evacuation, foot traffic, you could just walk straight across into the old airport. And so there's only one road coming in through a gate, which is separated Kamakahonu Beach. And then there's the estate that stays there, the old Thurston estate. And then right there is where the gate is. And that's the only access to the parcel for vehicles. So that would be in between the Jiffy Lube or whatever that's on the corner and the old West Hawaii or the West Hawaii newspaper.
And so that road goes straight up to the highway. Is that right?
It does. It goes straight up to Queen K.
I don't live in Kona, so
Oh.
I'm not familiar where we represent the whole west side. So
what I was just trying to make clear is that evacuation in that particular area doesn't connect with any other subdivisions. It isn't like there would be a congestion right there going through the gate to get to the highway. Is that
Correct. It's only for the residents there on Kona basis.
Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
okay, thank you. So, the Makai, the fishery, the nearshore fishery, Makai of the proposed property is a favored, that whole coastline is a favored fishing area, recreational area. So, in the background report, it does state that approaches will be undertaken to assure minimal runoff. However, there are times when there's like a kind of storm comes in and there's unforeseen rain. So can you please explain further what is going to be done to mitigate major rain events if someone is not on site, on property, to mitigate the runoff that may occur and damage the reef, the nearby reef and reef ecosystem?
Let me just see what we responded here in our application. So we don't address this specifically, Mahina, but we will be using basic management practices with silt fence. Also, the entire property from point to point is depressed. It's actually lower. So as you had seen that that barrier there that put us in the now category of flood zone D. So that little berm that is built up is about 2 feet higher than the property itself. So we will be doing very well for protecting the space from contamination to spread.
Thank you. That's helpful to see the picture again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Does that depressed area make this more prone to coastal flooding?
In my
Have
opinion,
to be pretty severe, yeah.
no. Really quickly, the idea of the D flood zone is that it's impervious. So if anything, if you had overtopping due to a heavy rain event or wave event, actually the water gets impounded within the parcel itself. It'd be very difficult for it to flow back out into the water. And I think that's part of the reason why they made these walls so robust in that area. It was kind of a trade-off to allow for development, but then there's got to be a barrier. And then remember that there's a whole suite of vegetation that would allow to help to prevent that. But in fact, the impacts to a heavy event would be more so on the residents than for the near shore area.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Would anyone like to make a motion? Keep in mind that we can amend any motion that's made.
I'm gonna okay, I'm gonna try with the additional.
Well, if you want, you can just make the motion, the primary motion, and then we can discuss. And then we can come up with any conditions that we want to add, and then we can amend the motion after.
Okay.
I move that the application for a special management area use permit docket number SMA 2022-017 be approved based on the planning director's recommendation, which shall be adopted.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Commissioner Knowles, second by Vice Chair DeFranco. Discussion.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would like to propose to add a requirement for a cultural monitor during build out. And also, I don't have, maybe you can help me, Chair. I don't have the technical language, but something to the effect of a requirement of additional soil deposit testing. So
Are you thinking cultural monitor versus archaeological monitor?
can you walk me through the
Sure.
difference, the primary difference?
The archaeological monitoring is established under Hawaii administrative rules and has certain set of guidelines for what level of, for instance, a archaeological monitor would have to have a license from the state of Hawaii to be a principal investigator, would have to follow Hawaii administrative rules in the preparation of the archaeological monitoring report, submit that to SHPD for review, SHPD State Historic Preservation Division. Whereas cultural monitor doesn't have the same level of oversight from the state. Often cultural monitoring will be done in cases where the cultural monitor is more overseeing the archaeological consultants, ensuring that their work is in compliance with traditional cultural practices instead of the archaeological scientific side of that. And in this case, having the archaeological monitor there to make sure that there are no discoveries would probably be the way to go. And if there are discoveries, the archaeological monitor will follow the state protocols in order to address those.
Thank you, that makes sense.
Can I add something?
Sure.
Based on one of the previous SMA minors, a condition was added. An archaeologist shall be on site during the construction phase to monitor activities in relation to any anticipated sites, burial remains, shipping, inadvertent funds.
I have a question for discussion. My understanding of the topography of the land is that it's Lapahoi, or most of it, all of it, except one small corner, right, that is 6 inches deep in some kind of material that's been pushed up on it. And I'm just wondering if really what we're looking for is to assure us that that one corner doesn't have an inadvertent burial site, and if there's a way to just do a due diligence for them to make sure that there's nothing in that one area rather than making it into something that all of these other SMAs have already been done, and there isn't anything there. It's all been disturbed and bulldozed except for this one section that maybe needs a little bit of exploration. Is there a way to just limit it so it's not like tied to the whole project?
Well, I mean, the nature with subsurface is you never really know what's underneath there until you're digging through it. As far as the archaeological monitoring, you'd want to have, typically you would want to have the archaeological monitor there for the initial ground disturbance. So anytime when they're doing the initial grading or excavation on an area, once they've cut through and they figured out what the substrate is there, they've pretty much eliminated any chance of finding anything. You don't need the monitor there while they're framing up the house, right? It's
Right.
just that initial.
So, but hasn't it already been excavated? I mean, I'm looking at an area that's already been excavated and it's already down to like bedrock, right? Except for this corner piece.
And even then, I don't think that the corner is unexcavated. Every part of this lot has been disturbed.
Okay.
But the issue that you see sometimes in areas that is disturbed is if there's fill that's imported on top of the existing surface, you're
Right.
preserving that surface below the ground.
Yes.
And so there's a possibility that remains exist below disturbed areas. And what Matt is saying is that there's such a very small possibility of that because this area has been disturbed to a level where there's, in all of his informal testing, he couldn't find anywhere there's any subsurface deposits that could exist. That being said, as Pat said, there's still a possibility. We can never rule anything out, ever, because of what it looks like on the surface. So that archaeological monitoring is kind of an in-between thing where he's looked at it, he's tested it, he said, yeah, I really don't think there's anything here. But because of the fact that there have been discoveries in the vicinity, right next door,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a safeguard where if they do find something, there will be people who are able to handle it according to the protocols that exist.
But if, I didn't go out and look at the site, but you did. And when you look at the site, are you looking at rock? Most of the thing you said you saw.
Yeah, I kind of kicked around and I didn't want to go traipsing all over. So I came down the wall, went down in there and was kicking around down to the bedrock, or the level. And they had said about 5 inches, and in some places it was only a few inches. Kind of what I would be to be garbage material, mix of gravel, construction, some sand. But the other thing too is that the development is going to be set back
From that
from that
section.
wall. So that
Yeah.
corner, well, there may be some minor landscaping, but there's going to be no actual building or construction
In that
within
area.
about 20 feet of that wall. So
And
that
that's the
corner,
questionable area.
I don't know if that encompasses the corner of the whole area that, that he's talking about. but
Yeah.
You might be able to speak to that.
May I also just add,
Sure.
part of the reason why I'm advocating for additional soil deposit testing is because of the statement that was made is that because of the adjacent properties that was not required to undergo this type of assessment, I think it's just good, it would be good to do this.
It doesn't have to be as restricted. I mean, that, the condition that you read out was fairly expansive in terms of I think it said the entire construction phase. And
Yeah, during-
theoretically, we could limit it, I imagine, to the grading and
Yes. Well, that-
foundational work.
and I think there are two separate issues, right? I think that Commissioner Paishan is asking about one, archaeological monitor, and two, archaeological testing. And under normal circumstances, the archaeological testing would be done first in the form of an archaeological inventory survey, if anything's found, or an archaeological assessment, if they go out and do the testing and don't find anything. At that point, the archaeological assessment would be submitted to the SHPD and to the county saying, hey, we didn't find anything. Everything's good to go. SHPD would review and comment on that application according to 6042 saying that we reviewed it, we don't think there's anything. Or if they don't hit their deadline, they miss it, they don't respond, we've given them the opportunity to review and comment. And technically what the law says is that the county agencies, the permitting agencies have to give SHPD the opportunity to review and comment on the effect of a proposed project on historic preservation sites. And so I think that it would make sense in advance to send this to SHPD. And if they don't make a comment, then we can come back. But we have obligation to send it prior to the issuance of the permit and not as a condition.
It hasn't already been looked at by SHPD?
Well, actually, the rule is that an archaeological inventory report is done, or a no effect letter from SHPD has been provided, or in this case, a copy of the letter written by the applicant to SHPD requesting a no effect determination. So the applicant has followed the law in accordance with our rules for applying for the SMA. It was after my review of all the historic impacts and my site visit, and based on the chair's previous ask, that the planning department try to take a better look at whether it needs to go in certain cases or not. But we can definitely condition and run it through 6042 if that would be helpful.
So did the letter that was submitted, did that go to SHPD?
Yeah, that was his letter. But Shifty doesn't always respond, and
Sure,
since the high crest system has come into play, if you don't know, that's their online application kind of submission system. They're not really responding to applicants anymore. So it's the law needs to be updated, the rule needs to be updated to kind of take in this new system. And then the high crest system does allow you to search the sites. And then, as I told you this morning, there wasn't anything shown on the Shifty map, but that doesn't mean anything. That things may not have just been registered.
Right, right. So what was the process like then?
I can clarify. The letter was prepared to go to Shifty, and typically the submissions now come from the county to Shifty. They will not take just a letter sent to them without a project that comes in from the county. So I was anticipating this letter to go to Shifty as part of the review of the SMA.
Okay.
That was the intention of the letter.
Okay. And so did you submit that directly to SHPD?
No, the project needs to come from the county.
Okay. Okay. So
if we submit this, then there will be that letter submitted with it, and there will be an oversight.
Yeah, we would do a
Right?
6C42 review.
Yeah,
And
okay.
I would go ahead and complete the high crest submission.
Okay.
Submit his cultural impact analysis, all
Okay.
the work that was done, photographs, things like that. And we could just run through and allow Shifty to opine on that.
yeah, to give them the
To
opportunity
give them the
to review.
opportunity.
Okay.
In that case, we could make a motion to defer the current motion that's on the floor to accept pending review by SHPD pending 6042 process.
Sorry, just a suggestion.
Yes.
Chair. You know, in the past, you remember we've had a lot of discussion on, we used to place conditions in the permits that were after the fact requirements of Shifty. I don't know if you want to consider it in this particular case where, I mean, it's pretty thorough, as staff mentioned. They did a very thorough research on past historical activities that have occurred on this property. It's a smaller property. It has a lot of bedrock. If you feel comfortable, you could also consider that placing a condition that we go ahead and submit it to Shifty, and whatever requirements they bring back, that the applicant comply with that. If you don't feel comfortable with that, then we can go the other route.
So we would have to then condition the issuance of the permit, the timing of the issuance of the permit. So we couldn't be issuing the permit until after SHPD has reviewed it.
Right.
But that would be giving all of the decision-making to SHPD in essence, and taking it away from us as the commission on how the historic preservation review process would play out. So there'll be something for the commissioners to decide, is that if we put this as a condition and we say that we will allow this permit to go forward after SHPD has reviewed it and completed the 6C review process and made any determination that they want to make, at that point, the permit would be issued. Or the other option would be that we can say that we want to defer this until SHPD's had the opportunity to review and comment on it, come back to us, and we would either agree with what's proposed by SHPD or not, or if they miss their deadline, that gives us the authority to then say, they've had the opportunity to review and comment, we can make the decision on this and move the project forward. Because I worry about that dangling out there for the applicant in extending their process. When, if we have the ability to say they didn't meet their deadline, we want to move forward. How would the applicant feel about those options?
So I just have a responsibility to the client to speak on their behalf, and
Yep.
there might be some ignorance that's displayed in this conversation on my part. So I'm giving you eye contact over here, Roy, because you've been so helpful, Alex, and I feel like this is the first time this has ever happened for a residential home on a Leeward Drive to get a SMA major application. Is this correct?
This is new because of the law change.
Because of the law change. And so, you know, we're jumping through as many hoops as we can to get the process going. And I'm fearful that this is going to belabor this for a long time. So the terms that I want to be able to deliver back to the client, say, hey, this is how we're expediting, but also wanting to treat the land with respect. And so we know that that's, is there another option besides going to SHPTA where we have an archaeologist reviewing anytime the machine's on the job? We're not even going to be poking holes in that area that's in question. So that's adding fill, soil, areas that we really should be considering is the deep excavation of the pool, because that might find some lava tubes or any depressions that were unforeseen. So having a qualified person there reviewing that would help us expedite the process if that's put in as a condition, versus to go back around and then have to come back before you and say, okay, SHPTA never responded to our letter. The time expired and now we're gonna get on the next docket and do this all again. Am I missing something in that process?
No, you're not.
Okay.
Unfortunately, those processes exist in the
Yes.
laws that we have to follow in
Right.
terms of giving SHPD the opportunity to review and comment on a project that has potential to affect historic sites. And so to me, the question is not whether they get the opportunity to review it. I think they have to, based on state law. They have to have the opportunity to review and comment on this project. The question is whether we put that as a condition and then it dangles out there with SHPD and it's up to you and them to work through the process independent of us. And then the permit would only be issued after they've given the stamp of approval for the completion of the historic preservation review process. Or if we ask you to go and to defer this for now, to send in an application to SHPD through Alex and the HICRIS system. And if they don't meet their deadline, then you come back in here and we make the call. And we say that we're going to issue it with these conditions over.
And can we hash out those conditions at this time to make the most of that, so we don't do this? Can we kind of know where we're starting? And then the other question I had, again, this is my ignorance exposing itself, but I thought that the planning director had the opportunity to, in this case, not send it to SHPTA, but I think I heard you just say, no, we have to send it to SHPTA. Or do you mean, is that an ethical thing?
In my opinion, I think we have to in this case because of the nature of the site, the location of it, the fact that the law says that if there's a possibility for it to affect historic properties, then SHPD must have the opportunity to review and comment. So they can pick and choose, you know, on permits that they think are not going to have any effect on anything. If there's a graded area in an area removed from any historic properties completely, then they can choose that. But in my opinion, of something like this, we have to send that to SHPD for review and comment.
So Mike, so just so I'm clear too, because what I'm hearing the applicants say that if they provide an archaeological person there when the pool is being dug and to make sure nothing is disturbed, maybe is that a better route to make sure that this project is being done correctly? I mean, our thing is to make sure that, you know, it is being done correctly, right? And for some reason, yes.
I just wanted to add that at the minimum, this would add two more months, if not more. is 30 to 45 days, and then to schedule it for the commission again, so.
Right, but,
just-
but
just to
in
do
my
it.
mind too, there's already been SMAs on this property, like many of them, right? They don't mean anything anymore, or you know so much more about archaeological things, but it seems like this property and this whole subdivision has already had SMAs done, right? And so this one, because the law changed, right, in 2020 or something, we have a new law. So now we have one more level of stuff to make sure that everything is being done correctly. That's the reason for the law. So the other reason is for the applicant to stand up to that and say, we want to be reasonable. We're willing to supply an archaeological person to be on site to look at everything so we can go forward and we don't get a 2 to 4 month, 6 month delay. Am I hearing this right?
Yes, so in this case, if you're recommending an archaeological monitor,
Yes.
then that archaeological monitoring report has to go to SHPD for review. SHPD is probably not going to review it if they didn't request the archaeological monitoring report, because there's been no initiation of the 6E42 process, which triggers the historic preservation review. So for us to just say, do a monitor and send it to SHPD, they're going to be like, what's this? You never sent us the permit on this. So
the reason the permit was in the first place not sent by the county to SHPD is because you went out there, looked at it and didn't feel it was required because of the topography of the land.
Well, the historic
And-
activity.
And all of the activities.
4
that's
SMA
already been done.
permits that have been
Before.
conducted.
Had done before. Okay.
Chair, is there a way to do an if-then kind of a condition? You know, the idea of having it hang out there with SHPD. And so ostensibly we'd be approving the permit today with these conditions. If that, unless something is triggered for SHPD, that would bounce it back to us. I'm just curious. I'm still new to this process, but I'm wondering if there's a way to do an if then. And so if there is nothing, it just rolls along. If there is something, it kicks back to us.
Well, there's the standard shifting condition that is for every,
Which-
well, it's.
which was the inadvertent discovery condition. Yes, yes. But I think in this case where we're talking about, again, the two options about whether 6E42 compliance be a condition of this, or whether that be done in advance of our approval of the application. So to me, it's got to be done one way or the other. And it's for us to decide whether we condition that or we ask them to do it and come back. Either way, this adds time. Because either way, I think this has to be done. You know, they have to do a 6E42 review of this project, in my opinion. Yes.
So, again, that's you've explained very well what the two options are. The option that the applicant does not need to appear back before the commission. Normally what happens is we place a condition. In this particular situation, it's a little bit more unique because planning would send the application through HiCRIS, and they would respond to planning. And also whoever the contact is. So the condition would be, the permit would be issued, but in the conditions, it would say that the applicant could not submit for a building permit until this process is complete. And so if SHPD comes back and says, you know, issues a no effect letter, then at that point they could proceed. If they come back and say, we want an AIS, they would have to do an AIS and comply with whatever requirements or whatever they would say. They would be held based on that condition to comply with whatever requirements are requested by SHPD. So again, that's the two options. Either they come back after Shifty responds and then you folks decide what you want to do there. Or you give the ability for Shifty to respond and they comply with whatever they want. And again, you still can request an on-site archaeologist monitor to be there.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
may I suggest we take about a 10-minute recess to craft some language and then bring
Sure.
it back to the commission
Sure, no
to
problem.
achieve the objective?
Sure.
Okay.
And I mean, is the applicant, if you guys have suggestions, please feel free to work with them during the recess.
Thank you.
We'll be back at 11:13. We good to go? Okay. Welcome back.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and read the condition that was worked out during the recess. The condition right now on the table is the applicant shall conduct subsurface testing of the property and submit its findings to the planning department for an HRS 60-42 review. That's the high question. The applicant shall implement any mitigation required by SHPE prior to the issuance of a building permit for the proposed development.
So that would indicate that they have to go in there and do some testing, make sure there's no possibility of anything out there. Submit that to SHPD as part of the review of the overall project. And then SHPD would make any mitigation recommendations once they have that information. And they may look at that and say, they've done a thorough testing of this. There's no deposits deeper than a couple centimeters. There's no possibility of any subsurface remains. Project can go ahead right away. Or they may look at it and say, oh, there could be something there. They might have to do an archaeological monitoring plan. An archaeological monitor may have to be there, but they'd be making that decision based on actual information about what's on the ground. I'm good with that. The only question I have on that, having heard it, is it the issuance of the building permit that is the requirement for the right time for the requirement of the mitigation commitments. Right.
So you, sorry, Chair, so you could put that in prior to any land altering activities.
That sounds good.
Prior to ground disturbance or any land altering.
That sounds good. Is that okay with you guys? Okay, commissioners, if you're okay with that, somebody make a motion to amend the motion that's on the floor to include the updated condition language.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the motion that is on the floor to include the additional conditions.
Yeah, the additional condition. As the condition as stated by.
The conditions as stated by.
Can we read it over as?
Please.
Yes, please, thank you.
So one more. The applicant shall conduct subsurface testing of the property and submit its findings to the planning department for HRS 60-42 review. The applicant shall implement any mitigation required by SHPE prior to any land altering activities of the proposed development.
Second. Okay. Motion by Commissioner Paishon-Dwart, second by Commissioner De La Cruz. Do we do a roll call of the amendment? Oh, any discussion? Nope. We'll do a roll call for the motion to amend, the secondary motion.
Commissioner Paishon-Dwart.
Aye.
Commissioner De La Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner DeFranco.
Aye.
Commissioner Knowles
Aye.
and Chair Batista.
Aye. Okay.
That was for the amendment.
That's for the amendment. That's a secondary motion to amend the motion on the floor. Now we can discuss the motion that's on the floor. Is there anything anyone would add?
Good with it.
Okay. We'll proceed with a roll call vote on the main motion.
Okay, so this is on the main motion to approve with the amendment.
Yes.
Commissioner Knowles,
Aye.
Commissioner DeFranco,
Aye.
Commissioner De La Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Paishon-Dwart
Aye.
and Chair Batista.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you. You'll be notified of the commission's decision, right? Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. Thank you so much. continue with the Deputy Planning Director's report.
The SMA log was sent out to the commission, I believe, a couple weeks ago, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions? Okay. Seeing none. Agenda items for next meeting. Are there any requests by commissioners?
The LE corridor update. On the LE corridor.
The road.
The CDP weeds changed the name from LE bypass to LE corridor. I don't know that anybody's even heard that, but we met for years trying to do that and make it into something that sounded not like a highway going through, but a meandering, friendly road to mitigate traffic.
So the planning director is currently trying to discuss that with Department of Public Works to find out the status of that parkway. And so we can put it on next month's agenda.
Including the word parkway. We really did change it to corridor. The CDP changed it. It's in the minutes there.
So it is corridor now? Yeah. Okay. I will no longer call it a parkway.
Any other requests by commissioners or agenda items?
Sure, Jessica, I have an announcement on that.
Yep.
So we have 3 items for the September agenda at this time. And then the planning department is working on a SMA Rule 9 change. And we're going to be scheduling that for a joint meeting, probably on Zoom in late September or early October. And that will be to address the Act 16 changes that Alex was referring to earlier, where now any shoreline property, new homes require either a major or minor permit. So you will be seeing a lot more major SMA permits for new homes, as well as shoreline setback variances along the shoreline.
When the meeting is over, I think we're going to get together for a photo op for Faye. Is that right?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
That would be under announcements.
Yes.
Photo op announcement, photo op after the meeting. Any other announcements? Anybody? No. Okay, if not, I'll do a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Knowles, second by Commissioner Delacruz. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Janice.
Thank you.
A good one.